I think looking at the highlights that I saw, I think they carried a wee bit of luck at the weekend. They're playing with belief. You know, every player needs an element of confidence to be at their best. You know, some people need a great deal of it. Others can sort of brush off criticism and go into any game and feel confident. And I think right now Arsenal are a team playing with confidence. And what happens here if you're not playing with confidence, you end up taking extra touches. You don't have the same movement, freedom of movement. Not always wanting to be on the front foot. And I think right now Arsenal are a team you want to avoid. Yeah, they're going well, but I think with the highlights that I saw at the weekend, they got lucky at the weekend. They got away with one. Leeds were fabulous.
Yeah, they rode a second half storm, didn't they? You've played in title-winning sides, Graeme. At what time in a season do you think, yeah, this is on? Well,
normally you would say get into sort of March time, but this is a very different season with the World Cup. So obviously not now, not before the break for the World Cup, and not immediately after the World Cup. But, you know, get into the last 10 games of the season.
That's a good point that Graeme makes, Simon. So how much is this Winter World Cup in Qatar, the break, how's it going to change the Premier League landscape? Because it will.
Well, this is the one thing that we don't know, because we've got nothing to base it upon. We've never had a tournament. We've had the African Cup of Nations, which takes out a percentage of players away from teams that disadvantages the teams in January every other year. But when you've got the entire calendar shutting down for a month and all that goes with it, you know, the answer could be the teams come back with all their players fit and focused and having had a good World Cup, and they carry on where they left off. The answer could be that they come back with a litany of injuries. People that have not played well in World Cups lose their confidence, and so on and so forth. So we're into very uncharted territory because there is no precedent for this, and it will be something that will either continue to flow or it'll change the direction of travel of the Premier League. I still think Manchester City will win the league, but I think what Arsenal are doing is, at this moment in time, very, very good. And to win games against Leeds, I watched Leeds against Palace last week, and I'm not suggesting I can compare Crystal Palace to Arsenal, but they were really at it, Leeds, for 25, 30 minutes and really made Palace look absolutely pedestrian. They couldn't keep the ball. Every time they got the ball, they gave it straight back because Leeds made them do that. And the game against Arsenal, they did something pretty similar, but Arsenal found a way. Yeah, okay, Patrick Bamford misses a penalty, and when he came on, I think he did change the direction for Leeds because he gave them something they hadn't had before in the game. But notwithstanding that, Arsenal found a way to overcome a very difficult side, and it's those sort of games that define the way that teams are performing and can continue to perform. Whether they've got the strength and depth, whether they lose Jesus, he gets injured and something then becomes less compelling about them, or whether Martinelli can carry it on his own, or whether we can continue to see the progress of Granit Xhaka in the middle of the park, who looked really good yesterday for Arsenal. Yeah. It's a different... But what you've got to give the manager and that group of players a lot of credit, because they've played the sides that people said would test them, and on the whole, with the exception of a couple of games, one game, they've come out.
They got lucky in that game.
They
played well in that game.
But Graeme, surely if you're Arsenal, you don't want this Winter World Cup. You don't want this to come along, disturb your momentum.
Jim, it's like our show. We go to a break when we're getting into the bones of a conversation. You know, you see it all the time. Half time comes at the wrong time for you. You're playing well, you're on the front foot. Half time comes along 50 minutes later, you're not the same team. So there'll be teams going into this break on fire, and when they come out of it, when they come back, they won't be the same. And there'll be teams that go into this break not at it, and when they come back, they'll be bang on it. So
what's your perception of Arsenal then? They keep this going right up until we all go to Qatar, and then they rejoin it and keep it going again, or will they?
Okay, that's what I've just said.
Will they be around when the prizes are given out?
I still think people are playing for second place behind Man City. The result yesterday, the performance, none of that's changed my mind. I think they are the team to beat. They are the team to beat.
And you look at their forward momentum that they've got, and you look at the games they've got coming up, and you know they've got Southampton, they've got Forest, they've got Brighton, they've got Wolves, and there's one compelling game in there if you want to look at it from that point of view, and that's Chelsea. The rest of them are games that you would expect Arsenal to win.
You've been in football. You can't look at football like that.
No, I know you can't, but if you're playing Nottingham Forest and you're playing Southampton in the bottom three of the division coming up, I know you can't. I know you take every game on its own individual merits, but on the balance of probability, you would expect outcomes. Now, that could derail them because they could go into these games and not get the results, and people could start saying, hang on a second, when it comes to the lesser sides, they can't do the job. But I don't think they're there. I think they are thriving, surviving, and moving forward on momentum, belief, and confidence. And it's a hell of a thing that injected into your veins. It builds you, and it can make you do things that possibly that exceed your abilities because of the belief you have in yourselves.
Listen, nothing is really put into place when something happens, as did happen in the match between Leeds and Arsenal. 40-minute delay, power failure, which saw communication between the referee and VAR. The technology was lost. I mean, does this set a precedent? Do we have to think about this,
Game
Graeme?
can't take place unless...
Well, all about integrity, isn't it? You can't suddenly play that game without VAR, can you? When every other game's been played with VAR.
Yeah, I know, but that maybe is something we have to address and talk about, because
it's the integrity
the
of the game.
alternative is you've got 40,000 people in the stadium. I'm sorry, you have to go home
must be
because
a
the
fallback.
technology's not working.
Everything has a fallback.
That's something we must speak about going forward.
Yeah.
Because you can't. What are you going to say to the 40,000 people? Sorry, guys, go home because we can't get the technology to work.
Exactly. I mean, in the interest of integrity, if they couldn't get it going again, Graeme, they'd have to postpone it, wouldn't they?
But in theory,
I mean, there must be a fallback position that's manual. Every industry, every entity has a fallback position. Whether you're running
but
a
they
business
don't.
that
That's
goes to
what Jim's saying. They don't.
Well, they must have. In the instance that they had here, they had a 40-minute delay, and the fallback position was that they managed to get it up and running. If their fallback position was if it goes past an hour, they have to go to a manual. I don't know. We don't know what that protocol is.
What's manual in this case?
They don't use VAR.
So go back to the old days.
They don't use VAR.
That's what we're saying. They can't not use VAR.
I don't know. If the 20 clubs have signed up to rules that say, in the event of a power outage, right, and we cannot connect for whatever methodology to VAR, is there a protocol in place that say we 20 clubs agree that the default setting is if you cannot get VAR back up within an hour?
That's what you're asking. That's what we're asking.
Is that something that's set in stone in some rulebook somewhere?
I can't imagine what the protocol is,
but
Simon. I would doubt if there's a plan in place.
But then, listen, you're probably right in football terms because they aren't the most evolutionary in their thinking, but there must be a fallback position. Everything has a fallback position. If this place goes down, you have a generator to kick in and put power into place. There must, and if it's not, then they're incredibly remiss. But how many times has VAR fallen over?
No, but there's always a one. Anyway, we've got some very smart people in this building, I believe. They'll find the answer to that.
I think so. We're on it. Yeah, we're on it.
No, you told me there's some very smart people.
Not located around the studio.
What would have happened if power wasn't restored?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.